I'm having it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon and welcome to our very first FREA webinar, Wednesday Wisdom webinar of 2023. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. I am joined by my co-host James Johnson and your Executive Director Ann Fagan, who will be signing on here in just a second. Do a couple of quick housekeeping details while we have several of you that are still logging in. We do record every one of these sessions and we put them out on the FREA website, make them available to you at a later date. So if you miss something, need to go back over it, something like that, you can always have reference to these as well. All participants are in a listen-only mode. And what that means is we can't see you, we can't hear you, but if you have a question, drop it into Q&A. And Ann and James and I will monitor that throughout the conversation today. If it's something specific to your situation, we'll probably answer it right there or get with you after the fact. If it's a question that the whole group would benefit from knowing the answer, we'll stop and we'll pause and talk about that and address that as we go through here. You'll also notice that QR code down there on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I want you to grab your smartphone, have that available later. I'm going to show you how you can get information on some of the things we talk about today and get back and hear more from details specific to what your needs are as well. So grab a pen and paper today. We're going to walk through a bunch of different topics and go through here. I'm going to give a quick disclaimer though. I don't usually do this in a lot of conversations. We're going to talk about things today that are related to Social Security changes, IRS changes, government changes, things like that. They are general in nature. They may not be specific to your specific situation. So this is not intended to be specific tax advice or specific legal advice to you as well. But I do encourage you to consult a tax professional if you've got specific questions about this. But in general, some of these things are just good to know. They may impact you, they may not as we go through here. So grab a pen and paper, we'll get rolling through here. But before we do that, I want to bring on Ann and let her kind of share how the year has started and if you've got any convention details or what you're working on, Ann.
Okay, thank you very much, John. We did have a convention planning meeting yesterday, and it is going to be a lot of fun. It's Florida country, and just think of a flamingo in boots and a cowboy hat, and you'll have an idea of the theme of the convention. We're looking forward to as many people who can attending. It's a beautiful part of the state of Florida, Panama City Beach, if you've never been there. We have a wonderful resort hotel that it has its own private beach. It has 4 restaurants. It's just a great venue. So that's enough about the convention. We'll have the details out by the end of this month, registration, etc. Quick price right now, room price is $167 a night. If you go online right now, it's about $389. So we do have a great price for the rooms. And we're just looking forward to having fun and getting to learn a lot and being able to share with people. Excuse me one second. And then I am not going to say anything else because John and James are the people on this call that are the experts. And the only other thing I want to say is, as a partner of AARP's, they have wonderful information on their website about all of the things that these gentlemen are going to talk about today. If you are a member of FREA, you do still need to pay to join AARP, but we would love it if you would go on there. You can check things from them. And if you do join them, you'll get emails that give you updates on the latest and greatest that are happening that I normally put on the Facebook page and send out to our members. And that's all I'm going to say, John. I'm handing it all over to you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Ann. Great to see you. Appreciate the opportunity to share with your members today. Again, my name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. I live a little bit north of Houston with my wife, who is a 2nd grade school teacher. And I've spent the better part of my career in the classroom helping active educators understand what their retirement years are going to look like. So I appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of these ideas today, some of these latest rule changes, things like that today as well. I do want to point out real quickly that that little girl that is there in the middle picture there, that's my daughter. And she just started her student teaching last Tuesday, her very first day student teaching at the high school level. She'll graduate in May. So she is following in the footsteps of many of you And I imagine many of you can remember that the very first day of student teaching. She was a little nervous, but every day that I've talked to her since, she's got a lot more confidence in enjoying it. So think back on those days that you started your teaching career, and know that's exactly where my daughter is today. So appreciate you joining us today. Feel free, if you've got questions, put them into chat, put them into Q&A, and we can answer those as we go along here. Just a quick reminder, FREA serves many, many purposes for you. First and foremost is to protect that pension that you've worked so hard for all your career, and the impact that it has on you and your living out there. So always pay attention to what Ann and the crew bring up to you in terms of what's out there from a pension standpoint, as well as any legislative issues that are out there too. They work to preserve the benefits that the state provides for you, also work to keep you connected. One of the biggest challenges we've seen coming out of COVID is local units getting back together and the viability of local units. Anything that we can do from our perspective that James and I can do to help FREA, we want to do that. But FREA is designed to really get your local units back together because you're so active. The things that you're doing in your communities, not only for your schools, but for your fellow retirees, is so vital. And then to bring extra benefits and discounts and things like that to you as well as part of your membership. Part of those benefits are having a relationship with AMBA, because with your FREA membership, you can help fill gaps that aren't covered by the benefits whenever you left the district, things that you left at the schoolhouse that you need as you go into your retirement years. And they're portable for whatever reason you want to leave the state. I don't know many people who leave Florida. I talk to people all across the country that say, I'm going to Florida, coming to Texas, going to Arizona. These benefits you can take wherever you want to. So if you move back closer to your grandkids, something like that, you can take these benefits wherever you want to. You can also extend them to your family members, children who have aged out of your benefits, or for maybe parents that need benefits as well. So you've got access to them by being a member of FREA. So today we want to talk about some of the changes that took place to Medicare and how to be a smart healthcare consumer, some of the changes to Social Security. We've looked through this, some of these changes. There's still 4 major gaps that are out there. We're going to walk through some financial tips to get your house in order this year to make good on those resolutions that you plan to from a health standpoint as well. And then we're going to talk about RMDs, required minimum distributions. And we already got a question about them. I'm going to introduce this subject because we've had a lot of people ask about it. And there have been some law changes that just took place as well. And then we're going to talk about some of the latest discounts to get your new year started off right. And some of those possibly could involve New Year's resolutions. So I want to just kind of engage the group now and throw a poll open out there to you and ask what your New Year's resolution was this year. And you can put multiple down there. So it's a multiple choice, totally anonymous. So if you want to fill in that survey and take our poll real quickly and just put those out there, and we'll see kind of what the group is feeling going into this year. And if you're like me, I maybe start out with 3 or 4 resolutions, and by the time we get to March, I'm doing about half of one. So hopefully we can show you some things today that can help you out to keep your resolutions throughout the rest of this year and on to the future years as well. So we'll just take just a couple more seconds. Got a lot of folks filling in that, and then we'll share the results as we go through here. All right, 3, 2, 1, last chance here. All right, we got an overwhelming number want to get healthier, get more fit, but also a lot of you want to take care of your finances and get those into shape, maybe build on some other things as well. So do appreciate the opportunity for you to share those with us. It'll help James and I kind of steer our conversation today. Again, as we go through here, if you see something that's a question out there, drop it into Q&A. And if it's something we can respond to you individually, we will. If not, we'll address it to the group as a whole. From the standpoint of just Social Security and Medicare, the first time ever that I've seen this, the cost of living increase is going up a whopping 8.7%, which is great. It's an average of about $140 on Social Security every month coming through there. At the same time, the Medicare Part B payments are decreasing by a small amount. This could be impacted by your income bracket, but just overall, what most people pay is dropping down to about $165. This is in large part due to when Medicare was planning their 22 rates back in 21, there was an Alzheimer's drug that showed a lot of promise in trials. And they expected a greater amount of usage in 22, but the cost was $42,000 per dosage. Well, that trial didn't go as well as they expected. They didn't spend as much on that Alzheimer's medication. And so therefore they were able to drop the price going into this year. And the Part B deductible dropped a small amount as well. So there are a lot of changes to Medicare. We're not going to address all of them today. We'll talk about a few of them. But if you want to know more about those changes to Medicare, I'm going to encourage you to use the QR code at the end of the conversation today so we can have someone address those for you as well going through. Some of those changes, even though they did decrease some deductibles, decrease some payments, they did raise some inpatient cost sharing plans. Inpatient hospital deductibles went up. The daily coinsurance, if you have to stay in a hospital, went up, as well as the skilled nursing facility coinsurance. Those payments went up. And at AMBA, we can help solve some of those things for you so that you don't have to worry about them as well. Some of the things that Medicare also did in 2023, it expanded the number of preventative care and screening services that are offered. Many more vaccines are added. If you're on Part D Medicare, which is the not donut hole, but the drug prescription plan that has the donut hole in it, they're now including more vaccines like shingles with no out-of-pocket costs. And a big one, if you are on insulin and you're on Medicare, they are capping all insulin costs at $35 a month for Medicare participants. This is not for everybody and all other private plans and things like that. This is just for Medicare participants. So it's a very nice cap that's out there if you are insulin dependent. And then also too, you may have received something in the mail saying you're getting a new Medicare card or an ID card number. There was a small breach. About 250,000 Medicare beneficiaries were involved in a data breach, and you'll be getting notified via mail that happened. Now, if it's one of you, it doesn't seem small, but 250,000 is not a big number, so it may not have affected those of you on here. What I do encourage you to do is to go out to Medicare.gov and set up your online account, your free online account at Medicare.gov. It will tell you what you're eligible for, especially in the vaccines, the preventative and the screening services that are out there as well. So I encourage you to go out and use that. That's a benefit of being a Medicare beneficiary. If you're not yet a Medicare beneficiary because you haven't reached that age yet, we can help you walk through that process as well. Now, Medicare does make cuts, and it's a way that they save money. Over the past decade, they have shaved off billions of dollars in cuts in Medicare. Doesn't not matter what R or D, or whoever's in charge up there in the federal government, they are changing how Medicare pays out all the time, including increases on premiums, deductibles, things like that, coinsurance clauses of all different types of nature. Really, how it boils down is something like this. Let's say you're a Medicare participant who had cancer. In this case, we'll say Grace is her name, a hypothetical. She lives in a more rural part of the state up in the Panhandle, but for the past 8 years, she's gone to a local physician's clinic to receive immunotherapy, ways to keep her immune system bulked up so she can fight off the cancer. And so for the past 8 years, she's gone to that friendly clinic that she knows everybody. Well, Medicare has come in and they may have reduced the reimbursement for that medication by just a small fraction. Well, now that physician's clinic says we can no longer afford to cover and offer this service, so we're not going to offer Medicare patients to receive this cancer immunotherapy at our clinic. So now Grace has to either pay out of pocket, or she has to go somewhere else to the doctor she's not familiar with, maybe has to travel a little bit further. So this is how sometimes cuts in Medicare may not have impact the hospitalization situation, but it could impact the treatment afterwards. It's important to understand how some of these Medicare cuts can impact you. If you had a life-changing event last year, such as a marriage or divorce, or a spouse pass away, or maybe you finally said, I am done working, period, and you stopped working, or maybe a hurricane caused one of your income-producing properties to be lost due to a disaster. If any of those life-changing events happen to you in 2022, you can immediately file. You don't have to wait until tax time. SSA 44, which is a Medicare income-related monthly adjusted document that can possibly lower how much you pay for your Medicare Part B premiums. So as I mentioned, most people pay the new amount, $164.90 a month. That's average for everybody pays. Some people pay more based on their income. If one of these things happen to you, you can file this paperwork immediately, and it possibly could reduce how much you pay for your Part B premium. So I encourage you, write that SSA 44 down, get that filed. You don't have to wait until tax time to do that. All right, let's talk about just general knowledge of your healthcare plans, whether it's Medicare, whether it's a private plan or a hybrid or a Medicare Advantage plan. You need to understand your copays, deductibles, and your coinsurance. Oftentimes we get excited because the premium didn't change or the premium dropped a little bit. But oftentimes inside of that, changes are made to deductibles, copays, and coinsurance that can really cost you more money in the long run. So it pays to understand that. And then one that a lot of people don't realize, especially if they're on a Medicare Advantage plan, is what's called the OOP, the out-of-pocket maximum coverage. This is the out-of-pocket maximum that you're going to have to pay out of your pocket before the plan pays 100%. I've noticed a lot of Medicare Advantage plans increase that dollar amount. So they still offer a little to no premium, but the internal cost can be quite a bit more if you need to draw on it. So, or you need to pay, have a care provided to you. So pay attention to your plans as you go forward, because being a better healthcare consumer not only keeps you healthy, like many of you said, I want to be more healthy and fit in 2023, it can also save you money. Understand your coverage. Every year, even Medicare makes changes to coverage. And it could be that a certain procedure is now covered that it wasn't before, or vice versa, or a certain procedure can be covered inpatient and not out of patient. So, I mean, there's all different types of things that are out there that can really impact your coverage changes beyond just the premium cost to you. The other things are perks and incentives. I go over and check my mom's mail every once in a while. James takes care of his mother as well. And sometimes I will find $25 Visa cards in my mom's mail. It's because she's had her well woman checkup, or she's had a mammogram, and her plan provides her with an incentive for that. So check those things out in your plans, because they can keep you healthy and they give you a little nice something on top of that as well. Encourage you to continue to maintain those preventative services. And shop around for services. Ask for price transparency. The reason I say this, I was talking with my mother-in-law just over the New Year's holidays. She's been going to a doctor for many, many years, a Medicare doctor. And the doctor bought some equipment, it's some type of scanning equipment, I'm not sure what it was, but was providing that service in his private practice that could make sure that the patients could go over, get scanned and back in real quick time. And it was a great service, and Medicare paid for that. Well, Medicare made some changes that said, we'll no longer reimburse doctors for this scanning equipment unless that scanning equipment is housed in a hospital. Well, that changed up how he could provide services. So you need to ask around and ask about pricing transparency. Will my service that's being provided, is it going to be read by a third-party person that's outside of Medicare, something like that? So pays to ask that. And also, as I mentioned, don't skip on those preventative care services. Those type of things keep you healthy and can prevent those care needs long down the line there. So those are some tips to be a better healthcare consumer. Let's kind of talk about some of the gaps. And James and I, our role at AMBA is to make sure that we study that Medicare and You Guide every year, that we understand what's out there from a medical perspective that could be a gap that you don't anticipate. Because as good as Medicare is, as good as most healthcare plans are, there are four major gaps. Most, and the largest one that can wreck your nest egg, is long-term care needs, because most plans, or in fact all plans, are not designed to provide for home health care, facility care, chronic care after rehabilitative services. And Medicare has been even more insidious in the way that they've been classifying procedures that prevent you from even getting rehabilitative services after the fact. So those changes can make a big difference. When it comes to cancer, heart attack, and stroke, the three biggies that can really wreck your nest egg, that can really cause expenses, those Medicare cuts and those changes can impact about 60% of the cost related to your treatment after the initial diagnosis. Things like transportation, anti-nausea medication, prosthesis, wigs, experimental treatments, things like that. Medicare loves to come in and put in what's called qualifying language. We may pay for this, or we may pay for this if your doctor recommends it, but then we may go back and say, you know what, we don't think you needed it, so we're not going to pay for it. Things like that. That can be very frustrating. And so we find that about 60% of all costs related to cancer, heart attack, and stroke are not paid for by Medicare. Important to understand that. And then when it comes to medical transportation, we see this a lot in Florida because you've got such a large state, a lot of rural areas, ambulances, helicopters, air ambulances sometimes can really make a difference in the cost or multiple transportation back and forth, back to a hospital. And as much as the government tries to make changes, that's an unregulated industry. The cost is pretty high. Medicare doesn't always pay for more than 20% of those things. And then final expenses like life insurance usually are not covered as well. So it pays to understand your gaps. Now let's flip to the other side and talk about how to have a financially healthy 2023. And we're going to look at it on 4 different areas: spending, planning and organizing, insurance, and protecting your nest egg. So let's jump in. We're going to give you some tools. Some of these tools I'm going to send you after we get done with the webinar so that you can have these to print off, use at home, some links and things like that. Just another help for you out there. There are 3 big budget items. And in Florida, 2 of these are extremely big. And we'll talk about that as we go through these, but housing, transportation, and food. And so we've kind of looked at some of the trends and say, here's what we're seeing. And here's some ways that you may want to consider saving expenses in the area of housing, transportation, and food. We talk about downsizing. Everyone moves to Florida, buys a condo. That's the old, standard stereotype. They've downsized out of their home somewhere else. Downsizing can be expensive, but we're starting to see a little bit of costs dropping in the housing market, not so much in Florida because everybody wants to be there, but that's a way that people are saving money there. They're also saving money with what's called house hacking. And house hacking is a term that's used to define how you can make money with your home. We're all familiar with the Airbnb or putting a second property in a rental pool or an Airbnb, that type of thing. We're also starting to see individuals that can take on a roommate or a tenant within their home to save money and also provide just a safety net in case you're a fall risk, something like that. My mother took on a tenant last year and worked out great for her. We're also seeing if you've got storage facilities at home, meaning a storage shed in your backyard or garage with space, there are companies that, just like Airbnb, that you can rent out your storage space for a little extra money in your house. So there's some ways that you can save money that way. If you have a mortgage on your home that's an adjustable rate mortgage, as we all know, mortgage rates are going up. It may be time to lock that in and save you some money in the long run. If you're not driving as much, or you've got 2 vehicles and you're not using one, we're going to talk a little bit about insurance in a moment. It's a good time now to take advantage of used car prices and possibly sell that used car to get the cost off of you, but also to make you a little money that way. And then use the passport program that you have as part of FREA, as part of your membership in FREA, to use for meal prep programs, dining out, especially down in South Florida. There are many, many more restaurants coming online every month that you can save money, make your dollar stretch further. I'm going to show you some other passport discount savings here in just a moment as well. When it comes to insurance, some things you need to do to get financially healthy in 2023 for your auto is check your deductibles. You may have a low deductible, $50 or $100 deductible. Consider moving that to $250 or $500 if you can afford it, because you can save money off of your insurance premiums. Also, look at your mileage rating. There are companies that offer discounts based on mileage usage. So if you're not driving as much as you were in the past, maybe not going as far, you're not going back and forth to work, you still may be rated as a work to and from work on your auto insurance. Call your insurance agent and ask them about mileage usage. It could lower your premiums overall. Look for those companies that provide discounts for educators. Whether you're retired or not, you can probably get discounts for educators, certain affinity discounts, things like that. And if you had specialty coverage that you may no longer use, whether it be towing equipment on the back of your car because you were having a boat or something like that, or maybe you had pet insurance and on your car insurance and Fluffy's no longer with us. And so therefore you can eliminate that coverage. But it pays to shop around. And I say this with a little bit of a caveat. Shop around every year, call your insurance agent, call an independent agent, ask them about the discounts and shop around. But don't just jump because you get a good price, because you may have earned some benefits with your current company that you don't realize. Things like claim forgiveness, some renewal discounts, things like that. Some companies offer new customer discounts just to get you to come over. But if you lose those discounts that you have with your current company, it may not be beneficial to you as you go through there. So when it comes to home insurance, and I want to spend a little bit more time on this because I know many of you in Florida were impacted by the hurricanes. I live on the coast. I know that there are many companies who are stopping offering homeowners insurance or property insurance in the state of Florida coming up this year. And those that are continuing to offer it are going to start taking sizable rate increases. Part of this, you need to do some legwork on your part, is to look at the replacement value of your property. The replacement value is not the sales price of your home, and it's not the taxable value for property tax on your home. The replacement value is what it would cost the insurance company to replace your home. It's important that this is properly valued, that the company hasn't overvalued it, and more importantly, that the company hasn't undervalued it. So take a look at that. If you've made any changes, especially storm-related changes, because you had damage and you had it repaired, things like that, call your company and let them know. I've made upgrades to the home. I've made some renovations, put a new roof on, something like that. You could qualify for discounts, but it also is important for your replacement value. Also look at your deductibles. Oftentimes people think I've got one deductible. And those of you who've lived in Florida for a long time, you know, you could probably have 3 deductibles. One being a all other perils deductible. If you have a fire or a theft or something like that, it's a percentage of your home value. Then you could have a wind and hail deductible. That's a different percentage of your replacement value. And then you could have a named storm deductible. It's an even higher amount. Double check those. Oftentimes companies will put those in without even notifying you. And then it comes to hurricane blows through and you may have $10,000, $20,000 out of your pocket before they'll repair your home. So please, 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 especially in Florida, double check your homeowners insurance policies and look for those things out there. Look for bundle discounts, shop around. But again, if you can get good coverage and you can get a decent price, you might want to stay where you are because availability is going to be very much a challenge, especially if we have another storm season like we had last year. When it comes to life insurance, I just did this back first of the year as I was watching football games. I pulled out my life insurance folder, went through all my policies. I checked, do I still need this policy? Is it a term policy or is it permanent coverage? Is it going to run out? Does it have a nursing home rider on there? Some policies have this that may give you some money if you need to go into a nursing home. It's usually a free benefit, but check those in there. If your premiums are increasing, you may have some options to decrease those premiums and maintain coverage. Just double check. The other thing I want you to do is look at the beneficiaries on your policies. Too many times, James and I have gone out to a client that's had a spouse pass away, and they say, what kind of life insurance proceeds did they have? And we look on the paperwork and it shows the beneficiary was an ex-spouse. So we're taking $100,000 to an ex-spouse. That's never a fun conversation. So check those beneficiaries. We'll oftentimes take out checks to 2 of 3 children because that third child was not added onto a policy. please, please, please check your beneficiaries as you go through there. So that's kind of how you can look at some of the most important insurance pieces. I'll give you a checklist here in a moment that you can follow as well. And when it comes to checklist, we talked about this at the convention back in Orlando back last May. I'm going to send you this document. I'll show it to you in a few minutes. It's called the ICOD checklist in case of death or disaster. It is a simple 9-part checklist to help get your financial documents in order. And I'd share this for 2 reasons. 3 reasons, actually. One, if and when we pass away, someone's going to be responsible for doing all of your final affairs, all of those things. This keeps it all in one place, makes it easy. Secondly, when a hurricane comes, I've got mine in a plastic folder. I can simply pick that folder up, put it in the car, and go. We had this after those storms down in Fort Myers and even on the East Coast. Members saying, can I get that checklist? I wish I had that checklist beforehand. I'm going to send it to you now. Take advantage of it and knock it out now as we go through here. And thirdly, if you travel like my wife does, or we do, my wife was in New York a few years back, had her wallet stolen. I was able to pull out this folder. It had all of our credit cards. It had her passport pictures, all that kind of stuff. We were able to get her out of New York and fly her back home without any problems or too many problems. So this checklist that I'm going to send you has 9 boxes. You want to have your life events on there, your birth certificates, anything like that, any major documents that you have. You want to have your life insurance and retirement documents. I mentioned the beneficiaries. Make sure you have those beneficiaries on there. We had a question earlier on a webinar that I did this morning about death in service documents. If you have a spouse or you're still working and you have benefits from the company or the organization that you're still working at, you may have some death in service benefits. It's important to understand what those are because it may pay out differently or have a different payout than after you've retired. So if you've got that situation, you want to have your pension documents. You want to have your pension expectations, the details of those pension entitlements, because you may have selected to receive your pension in a manner that once you pass away, the pension goes away or your pension is reduced by 50%. So make sure you have those things in there. Bank accounts. It used to be you just had a checkbook and a checkbook registry. You knew what that was. You could go to the bank and take care of that. Now with all these account numbers, passwords, login information, have all of that information centralized so that you can have that where your credit cards are. Make it simple for you, for anybody else that is responsible for your financials to take care of those things. Safety deposit boxes. If you have a key, label where the key is. Label what the key goes to, what bank it goes to. My father-in-law his father passed away a few years back and left him an envelope with just a bunch of keys in it. He had to go around to a bunch of banks and figure out what key went to what, kind of a scavenger hunt, but make it easy on what's in those safety deposit boxes. Then you want to have your assets and liabilities, any property deeds, timeshares, your IRAs, those type of things over there, as well as any liabilities. If you still have a mortgage or reverse mortgage out there, any proof of loans. One of the biggest scams that we see for seniors is after the death of a loved one, people will come up with very official looking documents that say, your mother owed me money. And so you want to make sure you've got all that stuff in order before you pass away so that you can avoid those scams out there. Your monthly expenses, have those things down, who the utility company is, loans that you have out there, any membership, subscriptions, things like that that need to be stopped. Periodically, we get calls into AMBA that say, hey, my mom had passed away 6 months ago. I didn't realize she was having her dental coverage taken out of her checking account for the past 6 months. So have all those things so that your family can stop those subscriptions and stop those coverages once you pass away. And then we're in this social media world. Have your social media accounts, your passwords, your email accounts, your streaming services, have all that stuff in one place so it's easy to access and easy to shut off if necessary. Then there's be a place on here I'll show you for your contact details, who your doctor is, how to get a hold of your lawyers, ministers, financial advisors, things like that. And then have your essential documents there. Have your will, your trust documents, things like that, your final instructions, power of attorney, so vital. My wife went into the hospital over Thanksgiving. Thanks to her children in her classroom, she got COVID and had to spend Thanksgiving in hospital. The first thing they asked for was all of the power of attorneys. We were able to pull up the ICOD document, had that right there as well. So have those things. I'm going to send you this document. I'm going to shoot you out after this call, send you a PDF copy of this document that you can print off and start your New Year's resolution financially, checking a few of these boxes every week. My resolution that I made with my mother last year was to do this. Now we're on year 2 of this resolution. We're still working on this. But please, please, please make this a resolution for you. Check off these boxes. Hurricane season is not too far around the corner, and make sure that you've got your house in order that way. Now, I mentioned my mom. At Christmas 2 years ago, my mother I started noticing her repeating herself. And the past couple of years, she can remember everything from when she was in first grade 70 plus years ago, but she forgets stuff that happened yesterday. So I've started asking these questions of her. I've started asking her about these documents. We started putting together that checklist. I want to meet with any of her advisors. Does she have medical professionals? Who her doctors are? Where's the pharmacy? She's got a pet pharmacy that she likes to go to. Who's that pharmacy? What do they have there? That type of thing. And then we've got into some deeper questions, a little bit more uncomfortable about, Mom, if you need help bathing, dressing, going to the bathroom, how do you want to be taken care of? Do you want somebody to come to your house? Do you want to move in with my brother or I? Do you want to move to a retirement community? How do you want to be taken care of? And then what are those final end of life wishes that you want? And come to find out, she had bought a cemetery plot back in her hometown, about 350 miles in North Texas, away from where we live now. And she's trying to decide if she wants to be buried there or not. So just those things are important to have those questions answered now before it's time to get into a medical crisis, those type of things. So AARP, and Ann mentioned this, AARP has done a phenomenal job at thinking these things through for you. It's called the Thinking Ahead Roadmap. It is online, but you can print it if you want to. It's an interactive workbook if you want to save it online. That helps you walk through that conversation with a family member, with a spouse, with whoever it is, where you can choose who you want your trusted financial advocate to be and work those conversations over a period of time and gradually shift that money management to that advocate when that time's right, but you have total control over it. I'm going to send you, along with that copy of that ICOD checklist, I'm going to send you this link to the Thinking Ahead Roadmap out there. So it is really, really a neat tool. AARP provides some phenomenal tools out there. Become a member of AARP, but I'm going to make sure that you get at least a taste of what they do for you with this Thinking Ahead Roadmap. They're really a neat tool out there. Okay. Now, we talked about those top 5 threats to your nest egg, one of those being taking care of elderly parents, or if you are the elderly parents that your kids have to take care of. The other 4 are death with a spouse without life insurance, boomerang children who decide that, hey, mom lives in Florida, let's all move to Florida, and moves back in with you, a medical crisis that really cracks your nest egg because you've got to pay for transportation and your care as well. The other one is that we saw a lot of the past year or so is overexposure to the stock market as you age. This is a biggie because, as you know, it kind of started down in Florida back in 2008, and then the housing market bottomed out. We saw a 48 to 50% drop in our nest eggs back in 2008. Well, we had a pretty good drop this past 2 years. Do we have time to recover? That's the question. You know, you want to protect your money, but our savings isn't great right now. The interest rates aren't great in the bank. How do you recover 20% when your stock market, your nest egg takes a hit, when inflation is going up at the same time? So the good news is AMBA and FREA have partnered together for a solution that defers taxes on your assets, insulates them from a stock market loss, but if the stock market goes back up, you still get increases in the stock market. So whether you've got a nest egg that's got tax qualified money that hasn't paid taxes on it, or you've got a nest egg that's all post-tax money, you can put a portion of that here that avoids worry about the stock market crashing or avoids losing any money. The thing I like about it, there are some long-term care benefits inside of it as well, that if you need long-term care, it can provide for that. But if you don't need it, then you've got money to use for as long as you live. So it's really a neat program that's out there. We can show you how to get more information on that as we go forward. Now, required minimum distributions. We've had so many people ask about this all across the country. I want to touch on this on a very high level. Again, I want to give my disclaimer. I am not a tax professional. You should consult your tax professional in regards to required minimum distributions. Required minimum distributions are how the government gets their share of monies that you have saved tax-free over your lifetime. So we're talking about individual retirement accounts, those IRAs, 401ks, 403bs that you may have saved up, squirreling away $25 a paycheck as a teacher, 457 accounts if you were an administrator, those type of things. That's what I'm talking about. It's that money that you've never paid taxes on. I'm not talking about Roth IRAs, which are after tax. I'm not talking about your pension, which is something that gets taxed because it's being paid out to you. This is something that RMDs do not impact, nor am I talking about just that mattress money that you've saved up in a CD or in a money market account, unless it is some type of IRA. So as I said, it's the way the government gets their money. It's a portion of your qualified monies that you haven't paid taxes on, that's based on your age. And the amount that you have to take out grows each year as you get older. It's based on your account balance from the previous years. So what, say for instance, you have to take out required minimum distributions this year. It's based on the balance on December 31st of last year. Now, up until 2020, it was always at 70 and a half. Once you hit 70 and a half prior to 2020, you had to start taking required minimum distributions. COVID comes along, the stock market drops quite a bit. The government says, you know what? People need to try to recover some of that money. They need to save and hold on to it more. So let's push up that age to 72. So in 2020, if you hadn't started taking your RMDs out because you hadn't turned 70 and a half yet, you could wait to 72. The Secure Act, the Secure 2.0 Act that just got passed and signed into law back in December, bumped that age up to 73 this year and kicks it up to 75 by 33 or something like that. That's a big deal. Now, you have to take your first RMD by April 1st of the year after you turn 73. And then you take it in subsequent years by December 31st. So to give you an example, we had a question from Mona. And Mona, I hope you're on this call. You emailed in to Ann before the webinar and says, hey, I don't turn 72 until November. Okay. How does the new law affect me? Okay, so the new law affects you. You didn't turn 72 prior to November. So you don't have to take out your first RMD until you turn 73. And really, you don't have to take it out until the year after you turn 73. So April 1st. So if you turn 73 or turn 72 in November, nothing to worry about. If you turn 73 and 23, you won't have to take your first RMD out until April 1st of the following year after you turn 73. So you can wait, but then you have to take another RMD out in December 31st. Then it's December 31st from all years after that. So you'd have to take two deductions out in 2024 whenever you did that in that year after you turned 73. Again, consult your tax professional on this. This is so important because you don't want to get penalized on this, and I'll show you that in a moment, okay? If you're leaving, we've had a question about leaving. We do have a recorded version of this that we've placed out on the website. We can take care of you. You can go out and refer to it back there as well. So these RMDs, the way this works, this is very important, and I'll get into this in just a moment a little bit more in depth. The IRS has a calculation table Your tax preparer can do this. Most online software does this as well, that calculates it based on the total of all of your IRA accounts at the previous year balance. Your 401ks, your 403bs, your 457s, those are a separate situation. You consider those separately out there. There's a calculation that's applied based on the total sum of all your IRAs, and then that taxable amount is what you have to take out. That amount is not what you owe the IRS. It's added to your gross income, so it could impact the taxes that you owe. It could impact your deductions. It could even throw you into a higher bracket that impacts your Medicare premiums. So it's important to understand how those RMDs are handled, because it could impact some other things as well. If you don't take out your RMDs, there is a 25% tax penalty. This is lower than what it used to be. The government used to make it 50%. That Secure 2.0 Act changed that to 25%. You can decide where you take your RMDs from in your IRAs. It doesn't have to come equally from each one of them. You can pull it out from the worst performing group. You can automate it, whether you want it monthly or at one time. You can ask the fund to take out the taxes for you or not. It's your call. But do not, I want to repeat that 17 times, rely upon your financial advisor, your fund manager to automatically do it for you. You're responsible for it. You will face the penalty if it doesn't get done. There are other tax rules out there that say that you may not have to take cash out, depending upon the type of IRA that you have. And if you've got a much younger spouse, there may be some different rules that way. So please talk to your tax professional about this, especially as this impacts you if you get closer to that. We do have some members, and I hope I'm in this position, and James and Ann and I hope we're in this position whenever we do officially retire or get to RMD age, that you don't have to take out your RMDs, or you don't need the money that you have to take out. Some strategies that people use is they'll use that money they have to take out to provide for long-term care. They'll buy a policy, they'll put it away, use that money to buy a long-term care plan, and maybe take advantage of some tax advantages from that too. They can fund a life insurance policy to leave an inheritance. They can convert that to a Roth IRA, pay the taxes on it in the year they do it. But now, starting next year, if you have a Roth IRA that you've never taken money out of, you can pass it along tax-free to your inheritance. Really a cool thing that the government's allowing us to do now in 2024. So that's a neat change that's coming up there. You could put it into a non-tax qualified plan if you wanted to. It's your call. Fund grandkids' college funds in a 529 plan, or you can make a charitable contribution to a qualified charitable plan. So it'll allow you to maybe transfer money directly without having to pay taxes on it. Just a different way. Again, check with your tax professional. There are lots of things you can do with RMDs. The biggest thing is make sure that you're on top of them so that you do not get penalized for that. We've talked about a lot of things. The biggest thing to prepare for is we've got a lot more years of living. Once we reach age 65, chances of us living to 90 is great, greater for women than men. But during that time, there's the impact of inflation, health issues, things like that, and preparing for our long-term care needs. You've got to prepare, and that's what we do here at AMBA. We help you prepare for that, and FREA as well. We have some questions about Passport. I'm going to include some Passport information when I send this information out. I'll also give you my email address. But there are a lot of new things this year at Passport. It's a free discount program for FREA members. Doesn't cost you a dime. It's part of your membership. You sign up at myambadiscounts.com. I'll give you a tutorial when I send the email out. But if you need vitamins and supplements, GNC's got 15% off. The Calm app, the Active and Fit program, lots of discounts out there. And then on the financial side, TurboTax, TaxAct are offering discounts to sign up out there to download their software. If you need to get that trust, that will, medical power of attorneys, you can find discount providers out there as well. Again, ways that you can stretch your money by your FREA benefit. I'd encourage you to schedule your benefits checkup as well. Things change every year to Medicare. Things change every year in your life. You need to find out what's out there for you as well. And the way to do that is to follow up and get a benefits checkup. And secondly, tell your friends about this webinar series. Let them know what FREA does on your behalf. I know there's everybody on this call knows someone that they taught with that's not a member of FREA. Get them involved, let them know the value of their FREA membership, introduce them to a webinar, and get them involved in your local chapters and units as well. So I'm going to leave this open now for questions. We got a couple that have come in. I'm going to answer those in a moment. But if you want to find out more about the tax deferred asset protection plan, long-term care, Medicare solutions, simply hover over that QR code with your camera feature on your phone, just like we do in restaurants today. Hover over it, a little form will pop up. You can fill that out. It comes back to me. I'll get it to James and his team, and they can help you out there. If you're on a smartphone, you're on your iPad, simply email me down there, john.green@amba.info. You can say, hey, send me information on Passport. I'll give you the tutorial to walk you through the Passport program out there. All right, we've had a few questions out there. We are going to send you the checklist. We are going to take care of some other things I think James has answered in there about. There's a question we had, if you had several tax deductible accounts, can you take your RMDs out of just one of them or for all accounts? Again, we can't answer that you can take it out of one account. You don't have to take it out of every account equally. The only difference is if you have a 403B, 401k, or a 457 plan, you do have to take RMDs out of that plan individually out there. So, James, were there any other questions that popped up that the group needs to answer as a whole?
I don't believe so. I think we pretty much covered everything.
Okay, great. So again, I'm going to leave this up here. I'm going to stop recording here.